Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Is Andrei Jikh right? Could XRP hit $100? Okay guys, let's get into it. Okay, so we have a video by Andrei Jikh, huge YouTuber he's actually just a finance YouTuber, and I'll be honest with you, Andrei Jikh is someone who I actually saw when he really first started out, because I had money that I wanted to invest and stuff like that, so I was trying to get into other ideas of investing. So I was watching people like Graham Stephan and Andrei Jikh and just getting ideas of what they think and seeing if I agree with their strategies and things like that to see, you know, what I want to do and see if I could maybe broaden my horizons when it comes to investing. So he's someone who I'm actually familiar with, and you know, there was a point in time where I will be honest, I wasn't as clued up about XRP as I am now, and he put out a video, the very first video he put out, it was actually avoid Ripple and XRP, and you know, funnily enough, Lambo covered that video back in the day and kind of went through it and showed like where the inconsistencies were for Andrei Jikh and the things that he got wrong. And I was so grateful to Lambo at that time, because when I heard this stuff at first, and I hadn't done like my full research at that point, so I didn't have my full knowledge of XRP at that time, I was unsure. Like, I started to have doubts, but then once I watched Lambo's video, I kind of understood that stuff. And then as I did more research, my beliefs led me to agree with Lambo, and that Andrei Jikh had got some things wrong. And so here we are now with, you know, Andrei Jikh now doing more positive XRP videos. And once again, this is where it is funny, because you do start to see how as times change and as you start to see XRP become more successful, you see people doing the changes, you know. And I have to say that is just the truth. Like, with all due respect to Andrei Jikh, because this isn't me trying to, you know, knock him or anything like that, but there's so many people who've been negative about XRP while the price has been held down, and now that it's flying and everything's going well, suddenly everybody's being positive, and, you know, the doors are opening and things like that, and everybody's doing, you know, 180s on their opinion. But look, at the end of the day, it's all good. That's just how it goes with people who, you know, don't thoroughly understand things at times, because as I say, the original video that Andrei did, it did have a lot of inconsistencies and it wasn't all the way accurate. And so I do understand it. And so, you know, this is like it's like a nice moment for me now, because I'm in a position where I can watch this video and I can actually add my own knowledge to it and tell you guys, this is what's good, this is what's a little bit inaccurate and stuff like that. I'm able to do that. And, you know, I was so grateful to Lambo at that point, who helped me. And so I'm just here to do the same basically at this point. So let's get into this then. Andrei Jikh has done a video about why XRP could hit $100. So look, there's something I want to do here before I get into this, because there's one thing that I've noticed being a content creator, and that's that people don't always listen to the full context of when you say things. So as soon as they hear anything negative, they think that you just don't like XRP, or that you're being paid to spread FUD and just ridiculous things like that. Let me start off by saying this. Do I believe XRP could hit $100 in the future? I absolutely do believe that. So let me just clarify that. But I do want to go through some things with Andrei Jikh that I agree with, some things that I don't agree with, and just, you know, explain my thoughts on this. So I just want to be clear. I do believe XRP can hit $100. So if you do hear me saying anything that might be a little bit, you know, not exactly 100% positive about Ripple and XRP, I'm just being realistic, right? I'm not here to try and be, you know, FUD XRP or anything like that. I hold it. So I'm just trying to give you guys the truth. Okay, so let's get into it then. So let's go through the things of why he said, you know, XRP could hit $100, and then I'll obviously tell you my opinions on this and whether I agree or disagree. Okay, so first and foremost, he talks about the SEC lawsuit potentially coming to an end, you know, noticing that, for example, they've took it down off their website, they've started to pause certain litigations that they're going through. Obviously, we've got Donald Trump, who's a crypto president. We know Brad Garlinghouse has met with Donald Trump, you know, all that stuff. So that could be one of the catalysts that start to obviously drive up price. I absolutely agree with that. I think that's a no-brainer. I think we can all agree that, you know, if this lawsuit does come to an end, especially during a bull run, that's going to obviously contribute to the price being massive. And it means a lot of the legal scrutiny that they had to endure and the legal hurdles, they're no longer there, right? Because, you know, let's just be real. Like, if Ripple had lost that lawsuit, this could be very different for XRP. XRP's future could have been in a lot more trouble. So I agree. Like, once you've got the lawsuit out of the way, even just the stigma, right? Like, there's going to be people who may still want to invest in XRP, but they might be like, I'd rather wait till the lawsuit's gone just so we know it's, 100% safe. Even though it is safe at this point, it is. But again, you've got to understand what the stigma is, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be factually accurate. People could still be worried about the possibilities and things like that. So I completely agree that could be a huge thing. Okay. So the next thing he said was 80% of Japanese banks being set to embrace XRP by the end of 2025. Okay, he said that this came from a report by NASDAQ. Now, look, my question about this is, where did NASDAQ get this from? Because there's been a thing that's been going around for the longest time now where SBI's CEO has said, all Japanese banks are going to be using XRP by the end of 2025. Now, Crypto Area has already debunked this, and basically, it's been misconstrued, right? Like, she's shown proof of the actual article, and when you translate it, it translates a little bit poorly, but that's not exactly what was said, so it was taken out of context. So my whole thing with that is that article taken out of context by the SBI CEO? Because if that's the case, then that's inaccurate, right? So I don't know about that because he said it came from the NASDAQ. I'd have to look that up to see if that is accurate. But if they are referring to the CEO of SBI saying that, that's incorrect. So that means that that's not necessarily true, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. So I'll leave a question mark over that one because I don't know where NASDAQ have got their report from and where they've got their information from. So that one, I can't really give a full answer to. We'll have to see how that goes. But there is definitely an article that has been misconstrued, that's been going around for years now, which is inaccurate, just to put it simply. Okay, let's move on. So he's then speaking about ETFs. ETFs is a huge thing because ETFs opens the door for more adoption, basically bigger adoption. ETFs is basically opening the door to people who, don't necessarily understand crypto, but still want to be involved in crypto, or, they don't really want to have to go through the hassle of having to do cold storage and learning how to, set up a seed phrase and set up a wallet and all that kind of stuff. Some people may just be like, I'd rather just buy an ETF and have it held through, like Grayscale or something like that, or Vanguard or something, like some of these bigger companies who can just hold it for you. I understand that, some people prefer that, and especially because it takes out a lot of the security risk, right? Because, you're not worrying about like your wallet getting hacked or anything like that. You just buy it through the ETF and then you've got a lot more security. So in that regard, yeah, the ETFs are a big thing. I mean, we saw what it did for Bitcoin, right? Like when Bitcoin got approved for the ETF, like that took it to a new all-time high. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a huge blast through the previous all-time high. It kind of poked past it, but still, it drove it from what was a much lower amount at the time to it going to a new all-time high. So, thinking about that getting approved, especially during a bull run, yeah, that could have a massive, massive impact on the actual price of XRP. Huge. Okay, so then we get into the ODL adoption. So, global payments and things like that. Look, my thing with this is, and I've addressed this many times, so I don't really want to go over it too much in depth right now, but, we know that ODL it's demand neutral, right? So for me, when it comes to this, with the adoption of ODL, well, I'm not saying that it's not a positive. Of course, it's a positive. It's more from like a speculation point of view than like a utility point of view, right? Because yes, the utility is great and it is a great use case for XRP, but the price isn't changing due to ODL being used, right? Because XRP is being brought and sold in seconds. So you've got supply and demand acting together, right? It's not just one thing of supply and then there's still demand. And so that's not going to greatly impact the price. But if we see, for example, that XRP is being adopted on a massive scale and it is successfully being used as a bridge currency by, banks around the world, then yeah, is that not going to make people want to speculate to want to buy the asset more because they believe it's more valuable now? Yeah. So it's more of a speculation thing than it is an actual, the utility itself that's driving up the price, right? It's more people seeing this information and seeing it being utilized successfully and thinking, wow, like this is a great asset. This is something I want to hold. And again, banks could do that. Like banks don't have to hold XRP to do ODL. They don't need to. But again, if they think that this is a good asset, then yeah, well, is it possible that they'll buy some just to hold on their balance sheet? Yeah, possibly. But even that's not a guarantee, right? So I will say that could help as a catalyst to help driving the price. But this is why I don't go with like the whole $10,000 stuff, because people think that this means, this is why it's just going to go to $10,000. No, that's not accurate. It is one of the things that could help in terms of driving up the price, because people now believe it's a valuable asset, but it's not something that's just going to drive it to $10,000, because the price impact isn't being affected at all when ODL is being utilized. It's not. So this is more of a speculation thing and people seeing value in the asset rather than, okay, it's doing all these volumes of money, so now the price has to go higher, right? Then there was the talk about XRP replacing Swift, which Andrei said, like, he doesn't think that it's going to replace Swift, but he thinks it will complement Swift. I absolutely agree. I've said this before. I do not think XRP will replace Swift. Swift is basically a network of banks who own it. The banks are not going to want to give up ownership to then give it to a decentralized cryptocurrency. They no longer have control. Will they use XRP to help? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think they can use it as an addition to help, better the current system. But I don't think that XRP would replace Swift. I just don't see that happening. Okay, then we get to the March 10th ISO 222, which, I've covered this before, and, I'm thinking maybe closer to March 10th, I may even cover it again. But look, if people think that like March 10th is going to come and then suddenly the price just flies up to like $10,000, I'm sorry, but you're sadly mistaken. I just, that's not going to happen, in my opinion. And I've done videos on this. So please, if you want to see why, please check out my channel and have a look about me talking about ISO 222 and you'll see my explanation. There was talk about this, not even like just this year. I've covered it this year because it happened again, but there was talk about this in 2023 or 2022 as well. And I covered it back then. And I said, look, it was going to happen in November, sometime in November. And I said, guys, nothing's going to happen. And nothing did happen. And so, I'm just telling you guys again, March 10th is not going to be the flip the switch date. It's not going to change the price in any, material way. Like, and this is one thing I will say, guys, like if the price goes up by like, a couple of %, don't come to me and say, hey, you was wrong. I'm not talking about it going up like a few pence or a few, like a few dollars. I'm talking about it going up to like $10,000 or $1,000. Like that's the kind of increase that I'm talking about. That just simply isn't going to happen, guys. Not on like a set date. And this is where some people don't really understand exactly what ISO 222 is. It is a messaging standard, and this is something that Andrei Jikh did mention, but I don't know, like he did talk about XRP being compliant. It's not XRP that's compliant. And that's again where I think Andrei Jikh is a little bit wrong on this. It's basically RippleNet that's going to be the compliant messaging standard, right? Like Ripple are actually on the ISO 222 governing board. So it's the RippleNet that is the ISO compliant, and so obviously they use XRP. So it is a thing where XRP can be utilized via RippleNet. So that's obviously a positive, but it's not XRP that just is ISO 222 compliant. And I think that's where people don't fully understand what it means. So, like, could it have an impact overall, like in the longer term? Yeah, like I'm not saying it can't benefit XRP, but when people think that this is going to be like a flip the switch date, no, that's just not going to happen, guys. Okay, let's move on. Tokenization. He shows like a video about Larry Fink, who's one of the CEOs or owners, whatever, of BlackRock, and talking about like tokenization. Yeah, I agree with this tokenization wholeheartedly. I've been saying this for a long time now. Tokenization is, a very big use case because, there's so many things that can be tokenized. I've said it before and I'll say it again. XRP is not going to be the only network that has tokenization. For example, HBAR has already had a lot of tokenization going on. Even Ethereum has been tokenized on. So please understand, this isn't a thing where this is specific to XRP, but I do think XRP is a good network to be utilized for tokenization. And I think XRP will be utilized for tokenization. And so I do think that, XRP and the XRP ledger will benefit from tokenization overall. So I definitely think this is another good factor. Okay, then we get to RLUSD. RLUSD. 100%. I mean, like, we're seeing like how stable coins are having such a big impact now in like the crypto ecosystem. I think a lot of people like dismiss stable coins just because they're not like investments, right? Like, stable coins are just basically digital representations of the dollar or whatever country's currency. And so a lot of people like just don't think much about stable coins, but they don't understand that like this is what people are using to get in and out of crypto, but stay within the crypto ecosystem, right? So like, if you've got like money and you're waiting to buy and invest into more crypto, you're holding a stable coin at that point in time, right? Or if you sold some crypto, but let's just say you don't want to put it back into your bank as fiat, you want to keep it to reinvest, or you just want to keep it within the crypto ecosystem, you hold it in a stable coin, right? Because that way you're not losing value. It's just staying in a stable coin pegged to that currency. So you're not losing any kind of dollar value or whatever currency's value. It's just holding to that currency's value of whatever country. And so stable coins are massive. Like Tether, which is obviously the biggest stable coin out there, they make money hand over fist. They're making ridiculous money. And so, Ripple getting involved in RLUSD is going to be something that's going to be massive. And, XRP is used as a gas token because of that. So, because it's on the XRP ledger. So obviously that's helping again with the long-term viability of XRP. So 100% agree with that. The other thing that he did mention though is just being careful, because RLUSD could kind of outshine XRP in certain aspects, because people might rather want to use like XRP. Let me rephrase that. Some people may rather want to use RLUSD rather than XRP because it takes out the volatility aspect, right? So they might think, okay, well, RLUSD is just basically a digital dollar. So I'd rather use that because I know it's going to stay as a dollar rather than going into XRP for a certain use case. And then, it could be a thing of, let's say, something's impacted the markets that day, and then that cryptocurrency, that XRP, has lost X amount of percentage value. So, when you've done that transfer later on, you've lost like 10% of value. It's significantly less than what it was. I do agree with that. I think that's a fair comment to make. I will say at the end of the day, as crypto gets more and more adopted though, the crypto markets as a whole, including XRP, will become more stable in general because there'll be a lot more value in it. So, when you start talking about all the things that we're talking about here, all these factors that we've been discussing, like, ETFs, ODL, banks using XRP, and, it being like aided with like Swift and things like that, like the price is eventually going to become more stable. So that'll be a less significant thing. And the other thing is RLUSD is pegged to the US dollar. So you may have countries, for example, that don't want to use the dollar, right? They might want to move away from that. So they might rather use XRP in that regard. So, there's pros and cons to either one, but it was a fair comment that you made. So I'm not going to knock that. Okay. So then we have the crypto council that Trump has made, with Brad Garlinghouse being a potential member on the panel. I think that's absolutely a fair comment to make, because again, like, we know that Trump and Brad Garlinghouse have a relationship, right? We're all aware of that at this point. And so, like, Brad Garlinghouse can get in his ear, right? And while I do think Brad is going to be fair, like, I don't think he's just going to make it so, only ever do stuff for XRP and forget the rest. I don't think he's going to do that. But let's be realistic. Is he not going to try to get favorable terms for XRP? Of course he is, right? Like, of course he is. So at the end of the day, while he may be fair in terms of getting crypto adopted on a whole, is he going to probably try and get some preferential treatment for XRP? Yes. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. Like, this is one thing I'll say. Like, when I've seen what, like, Brad and that are doing now, I'm not going to lie. They are paying to play. And some people will say, well, that's what Ethereum did. And I actually think that's a fair criticism. However, when you look at what they've had to go through, like the lawsuit and everything, the way we were shunned, at this point, I don't care. Like, do what you've got to do, because we was unfairly targeted in the first place. So we're doing this just to get a fair, level playing field. So, whatever way you look at that, I really don't care at this point. Like, I think it's a fair judgment to make, but at the same time, it's like, we've been treated unfairly in the first place. So if we have to do this to try and get things back in our favor, then yeah, like, do it. You know what I mean? Like, we've already had the unfair treatment. So yeah, we've got to, like, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like, it's just one of those things where if that's what they've got to do to try and get basically what they wanted all along, which was just a fair level playing field, then that's what they've got to do. It is what it is. But yeah, I think that could be a huge factor. Okay. So that's pretty much the majority of the video. So then, Andrei just goes to the point of why he thinks that this could be, one of the dangers of this as to why it couldn't potentially reach these kinds of figures. So, when he's talking about this, he's basically saying like, look, you've got to think for XRP to hit these kind of numbers. We're talking about all the things that we've discussed and all this all paying off. There's no guarantee of all that paying off and all these things coming to fruition. I absolutely agree with this. And this is again why I say about the $10,000 stuff. People make out like it's guaranteed. And I'm saying like, when we look at all the things that we're discussing, like, let's just be realistic here for just 1 second. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that we've discussed is pretty much a given, like the lawsuit coming to an end, ODL adoption growing. But is it a guarantee that, for example, every bank in the world will use XRP? No, it's not. It's not a guarantee at all. And that's the thing where the people who believe in like it going to $10,000, they believe that. They believe that all the banks are ready to use XRP right now. And they're just waiting for this magical flip to be switched. And then that's it. Everybody's just using XRP from there on. I don't believe that, right? And I've discussed numerous times why. I've given my reasons. I've shown you my evidence, my data, to back it up. I don't believe that's the case. And so there's not a guarantee all this is going to be as successful as what people think. I hope it will be, and I think it will be successful enough for it to do well. But in terms of it going to like the $10,000 stuff and all that, I'm not buying it basically. So he then says, okay, this is something that you've got to just take into account. Okay, he says, would all countries want to depend on XRP when it's significantly held by a US company? He then mentions XRP being somewhat centralized. Okay, so I'm going to break that down into two parts, okay? Would all countries want to depend on XRP when it's significantly held by a US company? I agree with that. I think that's a fair comment. And this is again why I say, would all banks want to use it and things like that and that kind of stuff? I do get it, because at the end of the day, like, if there's countries who are not really keen with the US and, they don't really want to be held or under the grip of a US company, then yeah, I can completely understand that. Because, for example, we know that, for example, with RippleNet, like, they have to do things like AML and KYC, right? Like, they can't just allow anyone to be using RippleNet. Like, they still have to follow like sanctions and things like that. So they are still following like, American legislation, right? And stuff like that. And so there's going to be things where certain countries may not want to, be under that scrutiny, right? So that is a very fair point to make. Then we get to the XRP being somewhat centralized. And this is the point that he tried to make in his very first video. He's basically saying that XRP is centralized because of Ripple. It's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. XRP is decentralized. It's fully decentralized. It's not somewhat centralized. It's decentralized. The XRP ledger is decentralized, and XRP is a decentralized cryptocurrency. That's completely inaccurate. The problem is, right, and this is the thing what I'll say, and this is how I'll explain it. So I do understand people being concerned about a company holding a majority share of something, because it doesn't mean it's centralized, but it does mean that, for example, if Ripple was to tank, for example, as a company, well, that could have an impact on XRP, right? Because, like, let's just say there's some kind of issue with Ripple and Ripple goes under, well, they hold a significant portion of XRP. So it could have an impact on the market. However, what you've got to understand is, like, let's just say hypothetically, Ripple was to go down tomorrow. Ripple just struggles a bit as a business. So let's just say they let the escrow completely continue to release the XRP, but they don't bother putting the XRP back in escrow. The XRP ledger will still exist. And so there could be another developer who comes along. Let's say there's a new Ripple that comes along, a new company who wants to try and revive the XRP ledger. If they can start continuing to make use cases and things like that for XRP, then XRP could go back up in value. So it is decentralized, but I can understand the whole thought of like, okay, a US company holds a significant portion, so maybe that's going to have an impact on how I want to, what country is going to want to use it and that kind of thing. I do get that. But this is the thing. When, people are saying about XRP being centralized because of this. Okay, let me put it to you like this. You've got like Michael Saylor right now, who's buying significant amounts of Bitcoin, right? Does that make Bitcoin centralized then? Because MicroStrategy hold like significant amounts of Bitcoin right now. Like, let's just say Michael Saylor just keeps buying Bitcoin for however long. And let's say it comes to a point where he holds like 30% of Bitcoin. Right, because he keeps buying this. Well, does that mean that Bitcoin is now centralized because MicroStrategy hold that much portion of it? No, it doesn't. Now, don't get me wrong. It's definitely a thing to be a bit worried about, because if, MicroStrategy was to sell their Bitcoin, for example, yeah, is that going to have a huge effect on the market? Of course it is. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that Bitcoin is now centralized. See, and this is the fine details and nuances that people don't always understand when they're talking about this kind of stuff. And this is where we'll say, in all fairness, like, Andrei Jikh is wrong on this, to be honest with you. He is. So yeah, like, it might sound like some people will be like, oh, well, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. And the reason why you have to be careful with this is because this is the kind of thing where people get this stuff wrong, and it's what's going to impact like how people view it as an investment, and also what like the price potentials are, right? Because if people don't understand the differences, people are not going to understand like what could affect the price, or what could actually still continue to make the price continue to bloom, right? So it is going to have an impact. So people do need to understand this. The other thing that he mentioned was a sudden halt on the XRP ledger, which happened very recently. Okay, so that did happen. From what I heard, it wasn't that it halted completely, it was that it wasn't reading blocks, something along those lines. So the whole ledger didn't come to a halt, it was just not reading the blocks. I'll be honest with you, like, because I'm not a developer, I didn't look too deep into it, but I did see this. Look, at the end of the day, like, no blockchain is perfect, right? Like, all blockchains can have issues and things like that. I don't think at the end of the day, this is anything to have been concerned about. It got fixed in the end, quite quickly. So yes, while this did happen, yeah, that's fine. But then, okay, like, let's look at Bitcoin. Like, is Bitcoin fast? No. How long does it take to make transfers? Sometimes it can take up to days for it to go through. Is it expensive? Yes, on the Bitcoin network, it is. So, like, it's not like when you say this, it's like Bitcoin's not a good alternative to this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so at the end of the day, like, just accepting that, yes, things can happen, things can go wrong, like, that's just general, that's just how it goes. Like, I've not met a network yet that's perfect. So at the end of the day, as long as it's nothing like serious that could completely, take down the ledger altogether, I don't think it's anything to overall be concerned about. So, for me, like, I understand him making that point, but to me, I don't think it's a big enough point for people to just now say, oh, I'm just never going to use the ledger again. Do you know what I mean? The thing for me will be like, okay, how many times has it gone down? And when it does go down, how serious are these halts? Like, is it a thing where the whole ledger's just gone and people can't do transfers and things like this and people are losing money? If that's not the case, then it's like, okay, cool. Like, it went down, let's say, twice in its existence. And, both times it was resolved within, like, let's say, half an hour. Well, okay, that's not that big a deal. We can live with that, right? Like, that's not going to be too much of an issue. And so it doesn't even happen that frequently either. So you'd be like, okay, cool. Like, this is very few and far between. So, when it does happen, we can live with that. It's not that big a deal. So overall, I don't really think that's much of an issue. So, okay, let's wrap it up and see what I say then in regards to this as a whole. As a whole, I do think it was generally a pretty good video. There's definitely a few things that Andrei Jikh has got wrong, and I still don't think he fully understands about XRP. But overall, it's a generally good video, and the factors that he has said overall, if they were to all come true, could it get XRP to $100, etc.? Yeah, definitely. Like, this is definitely a possibility. I've said this before. I do think it is a possibility that XRP can get to 3 digits. We'll see if it does happen. Like, again, as Andrei said, I do agree. Like, we have to see how things pan out. I don't think this is something that is set in stone, but the possibility is there in my opinion. So I've gone through it all in depth. There's my opinion on this. And, yeah, we'll see what happens, but not a bad video overall. Definitely a few little inaccuracies there, but I hope I've cleaned that up. And just like I say, for me, I was grateful when Moon Lambo did this back in the day. So I hope I've been that same help for you guys in understanding this and, just getting a better breakdown of what he's talking about and, understanding the full depth of this. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that bell. Take care.